So listen up, countries of the world. If you ever want to get real good negotiations underway with another country, just get Tom Hanks to do it. He'll use his Tom Hanks charm and powers to sway anyone. Bridge of Spies stars Tom Hanks, as I mentioned before, and is directed by Steven Spielberg, who, if you don't know who Spielberg is, then you probably should not be interested in film. But this movie takes place during the Cold War. Tom Hanks plays lawyer James Donovan, who is given the job to be the lawyer for this supposed Russian spy named Rudolph Abel, even if it means having the entire country hate you, or having people shoot up your house, or the police calling you a traitor. He does it because he feels like Adolf should be given a fair trial. Meanwhile, a soldier named Francis Gary Powers is given an assignment to basically spy on the Russians. His plane gets shot down. He's taken into Russian captivity, and Donovan is sent over to the Soviet Union to negotiate Powers' release. So this is a Steven Spielberg film starring Tom Hanks, coming out in award season, and it's a historical period piece. You kind of know what you're getting into with this movie. I mean, not to say that it's bad, because it's not. There are many great things about it. Tom Hanks does an incredible job in this movie, even if his many roles over the past decade have been pretty much like the real nice guy, like the guy that almost has no flaws that everyone loves. I mean, we all love Tom Hanks, but I mean, his performance here, I don't think is any different from something like, say, Captain Phillips, except maybe less dramatic than that movie. But nevertheless, Tom Hanks is really good and does continue to prove that he is one of the finest actors working today. Spielberg's direction is really good. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg. He's one of the best directors of all time. But one thing that I really loved was the opening sequence of this movie, because there's hardly any dialogue. You kind of get an idea of what's going on just by visuals alone. Like, I won't say what it is, but that's an example of my favorite kind of filmmaking, or storytelling, I should say, when you rely on images rather than having to explain the audience something. It's the example of show, don't tell. I love that opening sequence. It's got a lot of other great performances, especially from the guy who plays the Russian spy, Rudolph Abel. He's really good. Despite being so monotone and emotionless, he manages to deliver a really great performance. One interesting note about this movie is that this is the first Steven Spielberg film since The Color Purple to not be scored by John Williams. This time it's Thomas Newman, who has a score that's very minimal, but I think good, even though there are some points where he tries to be like John Williams rather than just being Thomas Newman. But the score, while minimal, very good. Now, the interesting thing about this script is that it's co-written by the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan, and it has its funny moments here and there. I think it's well written. The dialogue is intriguing between the characters. It's just well made all around, and I think well written. Now, obviously, being a historical biopic, there are some things that are kind of twisted around just for the sake of dramatization, so there are some elements that I'm sure aren't entirely true. So what could be bad about this movie? Movie starring Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by the Coen brothers. What could be wrong with this movie? Well, as I said, it's not bad, but it's just nothing you haven't seen before. A lot of Spielberg's movies, when he's trying to go for the Oscar, in my opinion, all feel like they're on autopilot. You know what you're getting into. You kind of get an idea how it's going to end. And with that, it's a little hard for there to be any surprises. So I could just go like, okay, I know where this is going to go, and it does. Again, still a well-made movie, but for me, this is a personal issue with me and Spielberg. While he still makes some really good movies, I think Spielberg was at his best when he was doing genre, back in the days of Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park. I feel like whenever he does genre films, he has the freedom to be a little more creative rather than when he's doing his Oscar stuff. The key example that I can think of is 2011. Within a week of each other, Spielberg had The Adventures of Tintin and War Horse. War Horse, I think, is his absolute worst movie. That was like so on autopilot, trying to get Oscar attention, and it was just ended up being shit, honestly. But then you look at The Adventures of Tintin. It's his first animated film. It reminds me a lot of classic Spielberg, and there are some really creative things he manages to do because he's doing genre. So that's just my personal feelings about Spielberg nowadays. But regardless, I gotta be honest, Bridge of Spies is a really good film. Is it gonna get some Oscar attention? Obviously, because this is very much an Oscar-type movie. No question about it. People will eat this up. It is good. However, I will say, if Tom Hanks gets an Oscar nomination, I'm going to be mad. Not because he's bad, but because he didn't get a nomination for Captain Phillips, which I thought was one of his best roles in a long time, especially the end. So, I don't know. I mean, I might get irritated, but if he gets a nomination, then good for him. So, for Bridge of Spies, even though it is nothing you haven't seen before, I still would say it's worth seeing in your lifetime, especially if you're a fan of these Oscar-type movies, and probably Spielberg in general, because Spielberg is really one of the great directors. And that's my review for Bridge of Spies. Leave a comment and tell me what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Like, subscribe, share me with your friends. Don't forget to check out my official website, therealmrrobinson.com. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and Periscope. And this is The Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.